Hello, fellow sailors, and welcome to the first episode of Sailing Rohirrim. Like every good story, we must start at the beginning. So in this episode, you'll hopefully get to know us, myself Josh, and my wife Kat, and of course, the star of the show, Rohirrim, a 95-year-old antique yacht that we purchased and have launched again with high hopes and grand dreams of adventure. The goal of the channel is to not only tell the story of this beautiful vessel and our time with her, but to hopefully inspire others into this way of life and to teach what it takes to own, care for, and love an old wooden boat. So let's pull the hook and chase that horizon. John G. Alden sat down one day and penned a new yacht, design number 455. Alden, up to this point, had seen great success with his Malabar schooner designs. Many you can still find today sailing the world. 455 was a 42-foot ketch with a full keel, weighing in at almost 12 tons. And in 1930, Harvey Gamage would build and launch the only 455 ever built, carrying names such as Sasquatch, Hi-Ho, Windsong, Quest, and then Africaman. John Weinstein had bought the boat, and in 2021, Africaman received extensive work to carry her into the future. New frames, keel bolts, a new diesel engine, and a ton of standing rigging work. However, disaster struck. John had passed away, and Africaman's final sail was for his memorial service. Afterward, she was pulled from the water, and her fate now uncertain. Three years had passed, and Africaman had not been sold. People had given the boat very little time or attention, and this is where our stories collide. Through an off-chance meeting, I found the listing for this 95-year-old boat and began a drive to Maine at 3 o'clock in the morning. There, I met Bob Vaughn, the owner of the yard and a master of his craft, wooden sailboats. We walked over to a large storage building, and as the door slid aside, I knew I had just bought her. Towering over me was its beautiful spruce bowsprit. She was showing signs of shrinkage due to being out of the water for so long, paint cracking and peeling, but in very good shape. Needless to say, by the end of the week, we'd put the deposit down and began making the arrangements for her. Africaman had beaten the odds. What's in a name? While we loved the boat, we weren't the biggest fans of the name. Kat and I's favorite trilogy is Lord of the Rings, clearly by the music and the style of the video. You see, in the films, there's a subplot following the Rohirrim and the King of Rohan, King Theoden. We find him lost in the past, a man that wanted to live up to the legacy of the men come before him. In his eyes, he had failed, and now letting the past define him. This I can personally connect with. Not being the best son, and certainly not living up to the legacy of my grandfather, a man I did and still hold in the highest regards. As the story progresses, we go on to see King Theoden begin to break away from his past, and find that his life should not be spent trying to live in the glory of men before him. That just isn't him. But find his own path and his own defining story. We see hope and pride return to a broken man. This all culminates into one of the greatest scenes ever in cinematic history, the ride of the Rohirrim. And Rohirrim would become our trusty steed on the waves. Work began in June. Kat and I had driven up to Maine for the week to scrape putty and apply new anti-foul to the bottom and prep for launch. By July, the time had come. The masts were brought out. I did the prep work for stepping the mast, the interior cleaned, electrical systems checked, and the engine worked over. Then the masts were raised, and after 3 years, she looked like a sailing yacht again. You could almost hear it in the wind. I want to sail again. The next morning, she sat outside the hut that had held her for 3 years, mast proudly stretching to the sky. The tractor was brought over, and African men moved to the launch pad where it sat, everyone eagerly awaiting the moment. A co-worker and soon crewmate of Rohirrim, Dave Labar, and his wife, Joanne, had come up from New Hampshire to photograph the event, and he's provided all of these wonderful photos that you're now seeing. And finally, it all came together. Wearing the name of her late owner, African men slid down the ramp and into the bay. And in a moment of anxiety, happiness, and concern for the old boat, there she was, floating. Extra pumps were brought on to keep up with the water as she was so dry from years out of the water. But within 90 minutes, one pump could be disconnected. And by the evening, she was running off of her own pumps. By the morning, most of the leaks had closed. She was finally towed out to a mooring ball in Horseshoe Cove, there to soak for a few weeks and have a few last projects completed before the next big challenge, sailing to Baltimore. A roller coaster of emotions later, but there she was. Rohirrim had returned to the ocean. John, as I understand, had passed away believing that no one would care for or save his beloved vessel. I can only hope that he was with us that afternoon as fate had brought us together. Rohirrim was soon going to be southbound for her next chapter in life. And a new chapter lay ahead of Kat and I, and the three of us couldn't wait to chase that horizon. In the next episode, we'll explore the southbound trip and all that came with it. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. And with that, we'll all keep chasing that horizon.